Hey lovelies! All month long, I am sharing delicious dinner ideas that will help you get some food on the table quick and easy, no trouble at all. Today, it is all about one-pot pasta, which of course totally revolutionized the way I cook pasta in my kitchen. And I hope it's revolutionized the way you cook pasta in yours. If you're not familiar with one-pot pasta, the idea is that you don't cook your pasta separately from your sauce. You basically cook it all together in a single pot, making fewer dishes and a lot less mess. And that is something we can all get behind on a busy weeknight. First up, we are making a cheesy chicken and broccoli pasta. It's kind of like mac and cheese, but made a little bit healthier with some chicken breast and some broccoli, because of course we all need more greens in our life, right? As with all my one-pot pasta recipes, I'm going to be cooking this in a large Dutch oven on my stovetop, but you could also do this in a soup pot if you wanted to. You just need something that's really, really big. To get started, I am going to heat some oil in the bottom of my pot over medium-high heat. Once that oil is nice and hot, I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken to the pot. Now I am using some boneless, skinless chicken breasts that I've cut into cubes. If you want to keep this dish vegetarian, you are always welcome to leave the chicken out entirely and just make it a cheesy broccoli pasta. That would be delicious as well. Now that our chicken is in the pan, we'll just let it cook away for between 6 to 8 minutes or until it starts to become golden around the edges. Then we can go ahead and start building in some flavor. We're going to do that with a little bit of finely diced onion in our pan. We'll let that cook for another 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will add some minced garlic to that for even more great flavor, and we'll let that cook for another 30 seconds or so. Once that garlic is nice and fragrant, we can go ahead and add our pasta to the pot. In this recipe, I am using some fusilli. You could do this with rotini, with macaroni if you wanted to. I'm also going to be adding some chicken broth to this. That is what is going to cook our pasta in the pot. And because this is going to be a nice creamy dish, I'm also adding some milk. Now, if you've never made one-pot pasta before, this might all seem a bit strange, the idea that our pasta is in with all this liquid. What we're going to do now is bring this all to a boil, and once this mixture reaches a boil, we'll reduce our heat to medium-low, cover it, and let this cook away until that pasta is nice and tender. This usually takes between 12 and 14 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. Really depends on how high your heat is. What is immensely important when you're making one-pot pasta though, is that it loves to stick to the bottom of the pan. So you wanna make sure every 2 or 3 minutes you're removing that lid, giving it a good stir, and then replacing the lid. Once you've only got a little bit of liquid left in your pot, you'll know it is time to go ahead and add your broccoli florets to this. Once it's stirred in, I'll just replace the lid on my pot and let it steam away until it's nice and tender. I like holding off on adding my broccoli to the end of cooking so that it doesn't get overcooked and mushy. Oh, and just a few short minutes later, our broccoli is looking amazing. My final ingredients in this dish are some red pepper flakes, which of course are optional but are always tasty, a little bit of nutmeg, which is actually really classic in a mac and cheese dish, and finally, for the best part, we have got a whole heaping helping of cheddar headed into this pot. Look at that cheesiness. We'll give this 2 minutes to melt down and dinner is served. Trust me, I think it is best enjoyed fresh straight from the pot. You really don't have to worry about leftovers because I promise you, your whole family will be coming back for seconds. Next up, I am sharing what I consider to be one of my more inspired one-pot pasta ideas. It's actually a one-pot pasta that is inspired by the flavors of a Bloody Mary. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bloody Mary, it is a classic cocktail that features flavors like celery, Worcestershire, horseradish, and hot sauce. Some very, very high impact flavors that I absolutely love. And since I'm pregnant and can't enjoy an actual Bloody Mary, it felt appropriate to put all of that tastiness into an alcohol-free pasta dish, right? For this recipe, I'm getting started once again with my Dutch oven on the stove. I'm going to heat up a little oil, and to that, I am going to add some finely sliced onion, and I also have some celery. Now, if you've ever had a Bloody Mary or a Bloody Caesar, you will know that celery is sort of a quintessential flavor, so you definitely want to load up on your celery in this recipe. We're just gonna give this a minute or two to sort of sweat them out. We're not gonna cook them down fully. And then we're headed to Flavor Town. I've got some minced garlic headed into my pot with some Worcestershire sauce, some prepared horseradish, and then I am adding a whole lot of hot sauce. Now, of course, as always, our hot sauce is optional here, but as far as I'm concerned, a Bloody Mary without hot sauce is actually just a bloody meh-ry. We'll let those ingredients heat up so they reach their full flavor potential for about 30 seconds or so. Then we'll get our spaghetti into the pot. Not to worry if your spaghetti doesn't fit directly into your pot, it's going to soften up eventually. For my liquids, I'm adding some vegetable broth and some crushed tomatoes. I'll give that a stir, get this all up to a boil, and once it's reached a boil, I am going to reduce my heat to medium-low, pop my lid on this, and let it cook away until, of course, it has absorbed all of that tomatoey goodness. Oh, and about 12 to 15 minutes later, what you end up with is this amazingly rich, beautiful pasta dish. You can wrap this recipe up with a good sprinkle of celery salt, very classic in a Bloody Mary, a little bit of black pepper, and a good squeeze of fresh lemon juice. I know this sounds like it might not make sense, but trust me, that squeeze of lemon juice adds a ton of brightness and freshness to this pasta. That's just bloody wonderful, if you ask me. Finally today, guys, we are making one of my very favorite comfort foods. I am making a one-pot beef stroganoff. What is not to like about that? I'm getting started once again with my nice big pot on the stove. I'm going to heat a little bit of oil in my pot, and then I am going to add some beef to that. Now, in this case, I am using a sirloin that's just been cut into strips. You could go ahead and use some stewing beef here if you wanted to. Any inexpensive cut of beef will definitely do. It's important to get it seasoned up really well with some salt and some pepper, and then we'll just cook it until it's browned. Then we can remove it from the pot and set it aside and get to work on melting some butter. Once that butter is nice and melted, our mushrooms are gonna head into the pot. I like leaving my mushrooms in quarters so that they're nice and chunky. We'll cook those for maybe 4 to 5 minutes just until they start to soften up and release some moisture. Then we'll add our onion to the pot. We'll cook those for another 2 to 3 minutes until they start softening up. Then we're going to go ahead and add some flavor to the pot with some minced garlic, a splash of Worcestershire, a little bit of Dijon mustard, and some fresh thyme leaves. I am obsessed with fresh thyme leaves, as most of you already probably know. We're gonna let all of this yumminess get heated through for about 30 seconds to a minute. Then we can go ahead and add our pasta to the pot. Now, in a traditional beef stroganoff, we use egg noodles, so that's what I'm using in this case. But if you wanted to use regular pasta, that would be fine as well. Once my noodles are in the pot, I'll go ahead and top it all off with some beef or some mushroom broth. Both work really well here, so whatever you have on hand is fine. Then, once it reaches a boil, we'll reduce our heat to medium-low and let it cook away until that pasta has absorbed all of that liquid and everything is nice and tender. Then we can just go ahead and add our beef back into the pot, give that a good stir, and for the final step, the step that makes it really a beef stroganoff, we're going to stir in a whole heaping helping of creamy, tangy sour cream. We can hit this with a little bit of salt and pepper, and there you have it, guys. What could be easier than that? It's saucy and delicious and rich and hearty and filling. One pot, super fast, super easy, dinner made easy, right? I hope you'll give all 3 of these tasty ideas a try. If you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo, because I love seeing your kitchen creations. Keep in mind, the recipes are in the description box below, so you can take a look for them there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because there is lots more dinner deliciousness where this came from.